Reserve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of a man.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero. Today, Aaron from Timeline Earth joins me. Aaron and I had a really good chat. We talked about the upcoming OSHA mandates, people losing their jobs, agorism, and all kinds of stuff going on in the news today. So I think y'all will enjoy it. We had quite a few laughs and just a really good conversation. But first, RyanBunting.com. For all of your graphic design needs, go to RyanBunting.com. Ryan Bunting is a great libertarian and a great anarcho-capitalist. He's also a great graphic designer. So go to RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs and grab his book, Project Manicore. Thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. And before I talk about the Libertarian Institute, let's talk about a personal issue I had going on last week, where my cousin's 6-week-old died, born prematurely, lungs never developed properly, and he died at 6 weeks old. And I put out a GoFundMe as soon as they released it, and within 24 hours we had met their goal so that they could have a proper service and burial for Jackson. So to all of you who donated and helped out, your kindness is much appreciated. Your empathy and sympathy, thoughts, prayers, all very much appreciated. So thank all of y'all very much. It was very moving that y'all were willing and able to push them over their goal of $5,000 so that they could have a proper service and burial for their infant. So that is greatly appreciated, and it's very moving and very touching. Y'all are wonderful people, and we love and thank y'all so much. Now, asking for more money, libertarianinstitute.org is having their fall fund drive. We have a goal of $60,000 to help fund the Institute through next year. So we depend on all of you good people to fund us and keep us going, keep our lights on, keep writers coming in, so that we can have a great institute for y'all to enjoy and learn from. So thank you very much for everything you've given so far, and keep it up. We're almost there. So go to the libertarianinstitute.org/donate and, give us like $5-6. Buy us a cup of coffee and help us pay our bills next year. Enjoy the show. Okay, about time. I'm here with the man Aaron from Timeline Earth. What's going on, dude?
How's it going, man? It's going all right here, I guess. Could be better, but could be worse.
Yeah, well, you're living behind enemy lines.
Yeah, I'm in the shit. COVID policy central, the nexus of COVID tyranny, or whatever you want to call it, corporate fascism. Yeah. However you want to put it, I'm there.
I've been saying for quite a while, since I met my wife, because my wife's from South Africa, if you want to know where the United States is going to be in 20 years, look at South Africa. But if you want to know where Texas is going to be in 6 months, look to Massachusetts.
Texas is just Massachusetts driving the speed limit.
I think a mile over.
Yeah. So from what I know of South Africa, I've heard a lot of crazy fucking shit about South Africa. How much is that? How much of that is hyperbole?
It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the farm murders, I mean, it is happening. Their former president, Zuma, used to go out publicly and sing, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. And the thing about it is, from what I can gather, like really trying to dig into it, is that that race is being used as a distraction, and that it's where like you know how it is. I mean, you got your useful idiots on the ground that do all this shit, but you got your your elites that are pulling the strings, and so they're utilizing whatever language they have to use to get people to do what they want them to do, right? So they utilize race a lot in South Africa. And you'll hear things like, I won't vote for the DA. I'd rather vote for the ANC. As bad as shit is, I'm going to keep voting for the ANC because if I vote for the DA, they're going to bring back apartheid and shit like that. And it's kind of like the same shit you hear back here where it's like, oh, they're going to put you back in chains, type shit, So it's that entire it's just that entire system. But what they've completely like trashed the economy there. Everything it's fucking wild. When I went there, it was like, I want to say the US dollar was worth like 13 times more than 1 rand, right? So when I met my wife, she was making like 16,000 rand a month. I'm like, fuck, that's a lot of fucking money. And then I calculated it out and it came out to like $1,100. And I was like, oh shit. So it was that type of deal. Yeah. So they have a huge homeless population.
They're like on the precipice.
Go ahead.
On like the precipice of the first world.
Well, they're former first world.
Yeah, I'm getting lagged out. Let me move this shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm a little too far away from my Wi-Fi mesh. I'll take you on a tour of my house.
That'll work.
Doxed. All right. Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that they're former first world. They're not really considered, us civilized folk anymore.
No, they've dropped back down to third world, man. It only took them 20 years after the end of apartheid to drop down to third world status.
It's the implication.
I mean,
coincidence?
I don't know. But
get me on your show and have me talk about apartheid.
Wasn't in the plans, but yeah, we can go there. Segregation is based,
no.
bitch.
We'll keep it light.
But yeah. So like I always look at it. I look at what's going on. It's kind of like what happened with Zimbabwe, right? And how that, because that was Rhodesia, and then they elected a communist government that kicked out all the white farmers, and the white farmers that refused to leave, they killed them. So after all the white farmers were gone, they were handing over the property to people that didn't know how to work land, right? And know how to grow crops, this, that, and the other. Huh. So then they had this whole food shortage problem, and then they started begging for white farmers to come back to the country. They're like, "Please come back. We got to eat. We got to eat more so we have the energy to kill you." Yeah, type deal. Well, the South Africans, being just south of Zimbabwe, they kind of understood what was going on. There's a documentary you can find on YouTube about the ANC and the rise of the ANC, and it shows like all the communist ties and how like prior to the rise of Mandela back in the 80s and all that, when all that terrorism was going on in South Africa, that it was happening, that they were being trained by the Vietnamese through like the 50s and 60s and 70s. But the Soviets were giving them giving the Vietnamese the marching orders to train them. So they were leaving the country, going up north, and they were training in like more tribal African countries to hold revolutions. And then they come back down and they overthrow the government, basically. And what they were doing, which was really crazy, is they were attacking the poorest people in the country. So they weren't going, like, their fight was against the white people, the rich white people, the upper class. But what they would do is they would go into the ghetto and they would be burning down the ghetto. And they would get because like the whole goal, and I talked to Michael Rechtenwald about this, the whole goal is to radicalize more people, right? So you're not going to radicalize. Yeah. You're not going to radicalize the majority of the population, which is all lower class, by attacking the upper class. What you do is you attack the lower class and you say, well, if it weren't for these people, we wouldn't be in your support of these people. We wouldn't be doing this to you. And so you're getting these people on your side. So you're getting these, these soldiers, these foot soldiers on your side. And that's the tactics they used.
Huh.
And I saw a lot of this whenever
I didn't know that.
Well, when all that shit was going down last year, when they were burning down cities up north, I was like, that's what they're doing. They're attacking the minority, the poor neighborhoods, not because they're angry at the poor neighborhoods, but because they're giving an ultimatum, basically saying, join us or we're going to keep burning down your shit.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, that's I always thought it was just the stereotypical Cold War trope where you go have, two or three steps removed from being funded and armed by Russia, funded and armed by proxies, you become a proxy, and then you go out and, cause a revolution, take over the government, and then you're a puppet state.
Yeah, it's really a more you're either with us or them type deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. The gears are spinning in my brain.
I can see
Just
it.
kidding. In Minecraft.
The sparks are flying out your ears.
the mouse wheel.
But yeah, so that's the way they go about it. Like when I had Michael Rechtenwald on, and I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a former NYU professor.
I've heard of him.
He was a Marxist, and now he's a Misesian, and he's a former NYU professor. He writes a lot of shit on the Great Reset. You probably like his stuff. I actually just got an email from his writing that he wrote something today on the Great Reset. And so I had him on to talk about that. We were talking about why would these quote unquote Marxists be attracted to corporations? What would cause that? And so we're talking about it in the scope of the Great Reset. And he's saying, well, look, man, he's like, if you can whittle out the capitalism, if you can create a corporate communism to where the corporations are communing and they're creating these communist systems through the corporations, then you'll be on that side, because then you only have to overthrow the corporations. You don't have to overthrow the population. Yeah. You only have to deal with the corporations. And so it's a matter of strategy and a matter of getting that political power in one centralized location so that you have somewhere to target.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It makes sense in a lot of respects why Marxists would play the long game and gradually subsume corporate oligarchies. They're a ready-made infrastructure for redistribution, for cultural control, and the government is essentially run by them. So if you can subsume, say, 300 out of the Fortune 500, then you have effectively taken over the state.
Yeah. And here's something that you might find interesting, just turning it back to South Africa a little bit, because it all kind of intermingles in my brain together, like some conglomerated, horrible Jenga tower. But They have this section of South Africa. I think it's the southwestern portion of South Africa. It's called Oranje, right? And Oranje is actually it's a civilization. It's a locale within South Africa that's its own state that you have to apply to become a citizen of. And part of your application is proving that you are self-sufficient and can take care of yourself. And a lot of the white farmers have moved from the urban areas and moved to Oranje and left a lot of like the rest of South Africa kind of like without farmers.
So it's like an inverse Zapatista movement.
Similar, yeah.
Now, did they have to carve out that territory from like violently, or did they just kind of do it and they haven't been fucked with for so long that they've been able to like build up security?
It's been a few years since I watched it. There's a documentary on it. Like again, you can find it on YouTube, and it's been a few years since I watched it. But if I remember correctly, one family bought like thousands of acres, and then they just started they basically started their own covenant community. Basically, is what it was. Yeah. And
the state was probably too weak to do anything about it.
Exactly. Because they can't collect any taxes.
Yeah.
Because 70% of like their population isn't working. So like, where are you getting money from? Other than China, and that's why they sell.
It's going to be interesting.
They sell all their infrastructure projects to China.
Yeah, I did see something along those lines. China is all over Africa now.
I think my wife told me, and I'd have to check with her, but I think she's told me for at least the last like 12, 13 years, it's been all Chinese infrastructure. Like you can't get a construction job unless you're Chinese or working for the Chinese government.
Yeah. There's they have a pretty good presence around here too, as far as the construction industry.
Really?
And property management as well.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day. It was
as far as.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to say.
Oh no, go ahead. I'll get into it in a sec.
I was just going to say I was on with James Gentleman the other day, and he was asking me if I thought the globalization of that we're witnessing today is going to counteract the cyclical nature of the tyrannical governments. And I was like, no. I was like, communism tried to take over the world. Fascism tried to take over the world. They were flawed because they didn't incentivize the corporations and the wealth, power, and influence properly, right? Capitalism has a market in which it incentivizes these corporations to stay within the bounds of capitalism and to stay and to work within their parameters because it rewards these people. And communism never offered that. Communism always it was too de-incentivized for corporations to actually give communists the power on a global scale. But the way the capitalist system is set up, it has created a system in which globalism has become a possibility because it incentivizes all the richest people in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that you can trace that all the way back to Marx's critique of capitalism.
Yeah,
it's I know that your audience, you probably don't have as many younger capital L libertarian types watching you as I do.
God, I hope.
But maybe you do. I don't know. But yeah, I know it sucks, man. But this is the type of capitalism that Karl Marx was mostly talking about, and Engels and all that. He kind of called it. Kind of called it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so, I mean,
now, doesn't mean his prescription is good, but
right. He diagnosed the fucking cancer though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, the only thing he got wrong was he kind of was a little early to the party as far as time preference goes. He couldn't quite get that get a theory of value that was universally applicable.
That's because he was a miserable fuck and he wanted everybody else to be as miserable as he was.
Yeah. And you know what? He did it. So what are we doing wrong?
But
what the fuck are we doing?
But see, that leads into like everything that we're seeing going on today. You know, I mean, the lobbying, the pharmaceutical companies in bed with the government and these fucking vaccines, and you know, now we got these new miracle drugs that have almost the exact same, you know, formula as ivermectin, but they're patented, so they're good for you. And ivermectin is only for horses.
Yeah. Well, the insurance companies need to get their cut. You know, between this mandate, the weekly test thing, that coincides almost perfectly with insurance not covering tests anymore. So, you know, everybody needs to get their cut.
Yeah. 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 And see, that's something that we're dealing with right now. Okay. So I had told you, well, I hadn't told you personally, but you and I kind of engaged on it whenever I posted it, that my mom was dealing with this stuff. You know, her job was telling her, well, you're going to have to get a vaccine, or you're going to have to get an exemption that we approve and testing twice a week. And so she refused to get the vaccine, and she got an exemption from a doctor. She got an exemption letter from a doctor, and her HR refused the exemption letter that she got. So she was getting tested twice a week up until last week, when she lost her job for refusing to get vaccinated because they wouldn't accept her exemption. Well, luckily for her, I mean, she's been
human resources.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, luckily for her, she's been doing what she does for so long that she basically turned around and found a job. You know, I mean, it's not making as much money. I mean, she gave up six figures, but she did find a job making decent money, and you know, she's like, we're going to be all right. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to be all right. I mean, I got 9 acres out here where I live. They live just a couple hours away from me, and they could always move back down to this property. They used to live here before I bought the property. So, they could always come back down here. It's not that we don't have room. So that it's not an issue as far as that. And she's only working remotely, so she doesn't have to go into an office and deal with people and stuff like that. So it worked out. You know, and
yeah, so she got off pretty good. Yeah,
well, we're prepared for a rainy day. I grew up really poor, so we're always kind of like, you never know when the sky's gonna fall. So
yep.
So that helps, you know.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about you know, the long game for the professional Marxists, like the top tier Marxists. How you know, the long con is to subsume corporations, and then you effectively gain control of the culture and the state. They're doing that through the HR departments. The HR department, if you look at the HR department, say 20 years ago, it was maybe 2 people, and only for like huge companies, right? Now every company needs to have an HR department, and over the last 10 years or so, they've blown up to 4 to 8 times the personnel. And the people that they hire are all these gender studies and history majors and English majors, like all the humanities that are also that have already been for a long time probably before you and I's parents were born, that have already been subsumed by professional long game Marxists. And I that's just something that I evangelize to, my normie blue collar construction worker type people. And it's like it clicks to them every time I explain it like that. Like, oh, how's your HR lady? Because I know it's a lady. And and they're like, oh, she's fucking terrible. She's like a blue-haired 400-pound tranny, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's the HR department is like the linchpin of the long game.
Dave, well, what sucks is they've put us in a situation where we look at each other that exact same way, though. We look at each other as resources instead of people a lot of times. I'm reading a book right now. It's really good. And you loved Kaczynski, because I know you and Pete just did that. Or are y'all still doing that? I haven't listened to any of it yet. I plan on listening to it all
tomorrow night.
Time. Oh, okay. So y'all are still, when are y'all finishing up? How many more y'all got?
God only knows, man. We might have one more part after tomorrow, or maybe two more parts.
Okay. So maybe like 3 more episodes or something like that.
But I really enjoy that format. Like, either me reading or having even better, somebody reading to me and then just commenting on like all the sections. That's if I could just do that format, that would be fucking amazing.
Yeah. I got a book here I'm reading. My buddy Coop told me about, called Future Shock. You got to check it out. It's really good. And it was written by Alvin Toffler in 1971. I told Bert about it.
Maybe you mentioned that to me.
I might have. I told Bert about it, and so, but I'm reading through it, man, and I'm really like soaking it in, because I could have sat down. It's the way it's written is it's so encapsulating, and it's so reflective of what we're living through. I probably could have sat down and read the whole 500-page book in one sitting if I didn't have to go to work. Wow. Right? I would have just sat there and read it.
Yep.
But it's very, he's talking, in 1971, he is diagnosing already like the problems we see. And it's just at an earlier stage than what we see. And then he kind of like guesses to what the future is going to look like. He's kind of speculating on some of what the future is going to look like and how things are going to turn. But he's not like completely off. He's close. And so I'm reading it and I'm like, this is how they changed the way we look at each other. This is how they made it to where we look at each other as resources, right? Well, I already understood that companies looked at us as resources, but the fact that we look at each other as resources, like if a new guy starts a job with you, one of the first things you evaluate is if he works hard. You like a lot of times, at least with me, I won't even take the time to get to know a guy that doesn't work hard. It's like, what is your value before I get to know you as a person?
Commoditization.
Yeah. And that's
something else that Marx completely called.
Yeah. It's a brain worm is what it is. It's like, because they can be perfectly good humans. They can be perfectly good people, right? But if they aren't showing the initiative or the ability to fulfill an 85 IQ job, then I don't want to talk to them. And why is that? That they're not less of a person.
It's because you don't want to talk to people that you can't relate to in any way. And I'm the same way. Like I won't be mean to them, but I definitely won't be, I won't have the same rapport with them as I do, my immediate supervisor or the kid that I work with that I know knows his shit and will get his shit done. Yeah, it's like a prerequisite for going beyond the level of work acquaintance. Developing that rapport, it depends heavily on your work ethic, because I mean, we have we're minimal. Every job right now is minimally manned, even more so nowadays. So we can't afford to have, people that like to shoot the shit when they're supposed to be working.
Well, there's that,
or I should say, that can't shoot the shit and work at the same time.
Right. There is that aspect of it, but there's also the industrialization aspect of it, to where like they created a situation to where employees are no longer within an institution for any amount of time. Right. It's this revolving door of people in and out of your life constantly. So you don't want to get attached to people that you're not going to relate to, like you were saying. And so you don't have time for the person that isn't up to par. Right. Whereas used to, you could have, 50, 85 IQ guys and, 30, 110 IQ guys, and they'd all be buddies because they worked together for the next 30 years. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
It's such a revolving door. One of the statistics he points out in this book is like, you need 1 million people in a person's life for them to find 20 good friends nowadays. And that was in 1971, and how many people do you know that have 20 good friends? I don't have 20 close friends.
I don't.
So
not in real life, at least. I mean, if you don't count family, like cousins and, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have just 20 good straight up friends that I'm not related to.
Right. And he's talking about you need these 1 million different people interacting in order for a smart person to find 20 close friends. And it's like, that's fucking crazy. Like, because he's saying the average person in the 70s engaged with 2,500 people in their lifetime. And so I'm like, what is it now? Like, think about how often you like see somebody new, it's just like, wow.
Yeah. You could probably discount the people that you engage with 1 or 2 times, like get in an argument with on Twitter for a day and then either get blocked or block them. Like, you could probably discount that. And even then, it's still in the thousands at least. Yeah, unless you're ace.
The guy will argue with you for a year if you let him.
You want to talk about over socialized?
Well, one of the things I was putting with this book when I was reading this portion of it was was in Fight Club when he's talking about single serving friends. And I was like, that's what it is. It's like everything's single serving nowadays. Oh, I think my head.
Nothing's built to last, not mechanically or socially.
Yeah. It's a fucking nightmare. And so you get to the situation, the stage that we're at, where you got these fucking mandates and people are getting kicked out of their jobs. And fortunately, people are in a situation now to where they understand how to move from job to job. But when you have like 49, 50-year-old people that are looking at the propaganda and they're saying, I don't know, man, or like in my mom's case, she's 59, it's like, you look at the propaganda and you're like, this is so much more tyrannical, so much worse than anything I've ever seen in this country before. Like, what the fuck is going on? I don't think I want to buy into it because like compromising with bail is always bad. Like, it's like, what am I compromising with here? And so you have a 59-year-old or a 60-year-old woman looking for a job. And it's like, who wants them around anymore? And she was really concerned about that. Luckily, she didn't have any issues with that, but still, she was concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, my my dad needs to do 2 more years until he can retire. And then all his kids will be moved out. My youngest sibling will be moved out of that house, and he's good to move wherever. But I mean, if this goes through, I don't know if he's going to have 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
And he's a bricklayer. Like he's not going to get another job anywhere else that pays anywhere close to what he's making right now.
Yeah, man. It's hard, man, because I mean, even with like the company I work for the same company my dad does. I stopped driving over the road. I'm driving local now, and I'm home every night. And I'm home with my wife, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, and then they just dropped a bomb yesterday, and they're like, okay, here in the next few months, we're looking at mandatory vaccines, or you have to get tested every week. And I'm like, I'm not doing either. So then what?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not going to do either of them. So then what am I going to be doing? I'm probably going to be, mowing lawns and fucking, like I'm a kid again, and just doing what I can to get by. Luckily, I mean, we're in a situation where even without my job, my bills are paid. So really, all my money goes to all the extra shit that we want to do and to, buying food and stuff. Well, I have a stocked pond in the back, and I have chickens. I got eggs and fish at least. Like I might be living on eggs and fish. I might get tired of eggs and fish, but I got food. Like I'm not going to be out of food. I mean, that's one thing that's for certain. So but I look at it, and it's like, why would you make this deal? You're supposed to be a family-owned company, right? You're supposed to you have several stores throughout Texas, and it's like, why would you do this? Why would you even want to make this bargain?
I mean, what is the incentive for them to do that? It's not like you live in a locale that's all about it. Like you don't live where I live,
right?
But to my company's credit, they've been quiet, and they haven't. They're in like a holding pattern. They haven't mentioned anything good or bad. And my boss, the guy that runs facilities, he's been telling us all the things that we want to hear. He said, if this thing goes through, then they're going to lose at a minimum 35% of their workforce. And they're kind of a newer company. They grew really fast, and they're going 100 miles an hour. They want to keep going 100 miles an hour. And but I don't know. It's at the end of the day, it's fucking property management. They're hand in glove with the state. So I mean, with the administration, and they're heavily dependent on the political atmosphere for their investment and all that. So I don't know. I'm in a holding pattern.
Yeah, I just wonder where it goes. I'm just watching. I'm just
luckily today. Did you hear the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals put a stay on it?
That was the Fifth Circuit in Texas, wasn't it? Or was that?
I thought it was Louisiana.
Oh, it might have been. I saw. My mom did send me something that. What's his name? Alex Berenson. I don't remember his name.
I think that's who I was looking at. So it might be Texas.
It might be Texas. It might be Louisiana.
Or your attorney general said something like, we're not going to enforce this at all.
Yeah, but see, the problem is, and here's the problem we're running into, is the governors and the AG can say whatever they want, but if the corporations are going along with it, if the companies are really willing to submit, kind of like Google and Facebook and Twitter submitting to the CIA just for, InQtel funds, type deal. It's like, are you a private company anymore? At what point do you lose that status of being a private company?
Yeah. Yep. And, where the tradition that we come from, we knew well ahead of time that no, a lot of these companies aren't, we wouldn't consider them a private company. But now, luckily, people slightly more moderate or slightly more normal than us are starting to realize that too, for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's probably a moot point at this point. That's the way.
Yeah, but they're starting to put it into those terms. Like, when this first started happening, you had a lot of people being like, "All right, there's something fucked up here," and now they're starting to talk like we were talking, 3 years ago.
Right.
And I mean, that to me is a little bit of progress.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a white pill as far as the recognition goes, but I don't know if there's. It seems to me that they wouldn't be this blatant unless they knew they could overcome it, right? So yeah. I was reading I don't think I ever sent you this article. I know I sent it to Pete a while back, and he and I had talked about it. But there's this guy, Parag Khanna, who he does work with what's that freaking financial firm that Klaus Schwab is the president of? I can't think of it now. World Economic Forum. So he does work with the World Economic Forum. He does speeches for them. So presidents and heads of state are listening to him. And one of the articles he wrote was about decentralization and how to overcome it on a global scale. And he's basically just saying, like, what we got to do is we got to recognize that we don't want to fight these social uprisings on decentralization. Let them decentralize. Let them have their social standards. Let them set up the way that their communities organize. And what we'll do is we'll buy the politicians and the businesses in the area, and we'll control the economy. We don't have to worry about the social aspect. We'll just control the economy. Is basically his whole point.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. But now they've opened themselves up to competition. We're in the infancy now of a right-wing populist uprising for economic control in some industries and some markets, but localism is making a comeback both politically and economically. Especially with this this bullshit with logistics.
Oh yeah.
Logistics crunch.
That's a fucking nightmare. That whole thing is a fucking nightmare. I got a friend of mine, Ross Kennedy, who's a logistics expert, and I've had him on the show before, and it's just disastrous. And then there's a potential longshoreman strike in 2022 pending, and you're like, oh God, what is that going to do? I mean,
well, yeah, they want to go on strike because we need to build more ports, and they don't want that,
right? Because
then you'll have to hire more longshoremen, and their wages stagnate.
Right. Well, as a truck driver, one of the things I've noticed, I was talking to, I was at the shop the other day, and I needed to get 4 tires changed, right? Because they were wearing down, and I had to go get a trailer inspected, and I'm like, well, might as well change the tires because it's obvious the balance is off and they're wearing funny. So I just need to get these tires changed out. So I was able to get 3 of the 4 changed. And the guy said, yeah, our shipment's coming in tomorrow. We have 3 tires coming in tomorrow. It's going to be 2 more weeks before we get another shipment of 3 tires. And it's like, okay, you want these supply chains fixed. Like, how's the supply chains going to get fixed if there's a shortage on rubber, which has been going on? Like, good luck, And you see some of these guys on Twitter. I saw this one guy saying he's so glad that he's seeing less trucks on the road because it's clearing up the traffic, and he's so tired of getting cut off by trucks. And I was like, I can't wait till this guy's starving. I just can't wait. So there's no produce on your shelf, dude. Now what?
Yeah. Think of how good the traffic's going to be when all the shelves are empty.
Exactly.
Traffic's going to be amazing. Get to work in half the time.
Yeah, exactly. I bought 3 new tires for my wife's truck. She's got a little Nissan pickup, and I bought her 3 new tires, and she that was like $400, man. And I was like, man, what is it? 5 years ago, 3 tires for a Nissan Frontier, but it cost me like, I don't know, $250. I mean, it's just it's insane right now.
I had to get I had my girlfriend's car up at the mechanics, and she got charged $300 for 2 front tires, and but that to me was a bargain, an absolute bargain, because she's got a quote unquote luxury car. It's a Volkswagen,
yeah.
But so they mark it up at a premium, and then they have to balance them. But for $300, we were ecstatic to pay that.
Yeah, it's just you got so you got to sit there. Well, and you brought up the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in that article that I read. They were talking about how truckers are going to be exempt in certain circumstances. They're pretty much talking about over the road truckers. Yeah, so they're doing everything they can to be like, yeah, we want to make sure everybody complies, but we got to make sure everybody's eating too, so they can comply. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those. It's this weird thing, and it's this strange dynamic too, because you talk to people and they'll ask you, they'll be like, "Oh, are you going to get a vaccine?" And you're like, "Fuck no," and they'll be like, "You're going to lose your job," and it's like, okay, what's more important, my integrity or my job? Yeah.
It's. I mean, I was actually a pretty moderate about it when they first started talking about, Moderna coming out with one. I think they were the first one, and they're a local pharmaceutical company from Massachusetts. And I'm like, I might get it. I might wait a little while just because I want to see how it, make sure that, the first batch of people don't turn purple and die. So I'll wait a couple months. But within those couple months that I was waiting, it just got fucking insane. It turned into a cult. And then I was like, all right, absolutely fuck this. And I know I live in Massachusetts, but everybody that I talk to, the more blue collars / entry level / even middle management types within construction and property management, there's a lot of people, anecdotally, there's a lot of people that do not fucking like what's going on in Massachusetts, in Boston.
Yeah. That's fucking crazy too, because that's what I was telling my mom earlier. I was like, imagine a family-owned, Christian-owned company saying, comply, get injected with the baptism to chase away the demon, or wear your talisman and prove to me every week that you haven't been in communion with the demon. That's basically what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, it's a cult. And
I'm waiting for Hobby Lobby to fold. Hobby Lobby,
we're done if that happens.
Yeah, Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A fold, it's over.
I guess Newsmax folded.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, Newsmax has a vaccine mandate now. I never would have thought that.
Yeah, I figured. I don't know. Maybe I would. I don't know if I would have put my money on OAN or Newsmax to fold first, but well, they're the Trump News Network, though, and Trump's the one who he's the one who rolled out Warp Speed. No matter what these people want to say, they were all about the vaccines when Trump was still in the race, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a complete reversal, and it's beautiful. I love it.
It's fucking clown world, man. I saw the other day. I texted Scott Horton. I was like, dude, you gotta do an episode on why plants crave Brawndo. And because I saw the other day that Rachel Levine got fucking sworn in as an admiral. I was like, how do you just skip every other rank? You're just an admiral suddenly.
She's the health and human services.
Yeah, that's the transgender.
Yeah, that's like some historical thing. He's not obviously not a Navy admiral, but they just call I don't know why they do it. I think it's because it's it's a branched off like the Surgeon General, who used to be an actual general, and then the Navy had some cabinet position. So I don't know.
So it's just a technicality.
Yeah.
Oh,
but,
okay.
You know, in 5 or so years, I guarantee you will see an actual transgender, blue-haired, fat admiral.
Well, I saw the thing in uniform, and I was like, "Oh my god, they're really doing this shit." Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's why I was like, "You got to do a show on why plants crave Brondo." That's all I know.
Yeah,
we live in a different time.
They're accelerating at a pace that they can't hold. There's no way they're going to be able to hold it together, because they're getting way too crazy for even like people that normally don't care, don't get involved. Once they start to notice it and start getting like uncomfortable and disgusted by it, then, you know, well, that's when we have to be there to be like, come on, push a little further.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think they're accelerating in that way? Is it just a fact of the writings on the wall? Or are they that hubristic, or do they know something we don't know?
I think it's a combination of, they think they know something that we don't know. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I think they think that this is inevitable and this is going to happen, and it's within their power to make it happen. All of these progressive social activist talking points, I think that they truly believe that it's achievable, and it's achievable within like the next generation. And I would beg to differ. I mean, it could very well be, but I don't think it's inevitable at all. I think they're
I sit here and I contemplate, and I'm like, okay, so what do a bunch of blue-haired lesbians and billionaire sophists have over the blue-collar populists? You know, like that's kind of the way I look at it. That's kind of the fight we're looking at here. Is you got a bunch of blue-collar guys fighting a bunch of billionaire sophists and blue-haired lesbians. And I'm just not, I'm like, all right, like this, something here doesn't make sense. Something's not adding up. I'm missing something.
I think it's just a complete a cultural blind spot that, you know, I hate to use the old tired trope of an echo chamber, but I think they literally live in an echo chamber. Like, they have never sat down at a lunch table with, you know, the blue collar populists and, you know, listen to their vernacular, listen to how they speak, listen to their, like, what they value, their, you know, their day-to-day life, their morality. I don't think they've ever been exposed to that. And if they have, I think that, they were disgusted and just never exposed themselves to that again.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I was saying, because, you know, they have such disdain for what they call flyover states, and one of the things I've said several times is they can't stand you, but they can't survive without you.
Yeah.
So they're doing everything within their power to enslave you for their means, for their ends.
It's geographic and it's class based, because they feel the same way. You know, let's say the head HR lady feels the same way about everybody in those flyover states as they do about everybody in, say, the building maintenance department, or the plumber that comes in to fix their sink, or the janitor. They feel that it's the exact same type of classification to them. So, like, it's obviously geographic. You can see that on your timeline, just scanning for 5 seconds. You can see that, right. But it's also heavily class-based within their sphere.
Yeah, I never could figure out how the fucking HR lady that makes $30,000 a year and gets banged by all the bosses in the office just so she can keep her fucking job has some fucking kind of like snooty attitude. Is it maybe because she's better at taking dick than I am? I just never got it.
No way, man. Don't get upstaged.
I can take dick with the best of them.
See, my problem is I just haven't sucked off my boss harder.
The moment he says swallow, I'm out. I'm not in the mood anymore.
You said a 5% pay raise this year, right?
You know where inflation's at, right?
Dude, I don't know how the fuck I'm not in a very good prepared position right now because I just bought a house and we're putting a bunch of money in it and we're doing like all our regular things. You know, getting a house in order as well as improving it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, normal regular expenses. I am not in the best position. So if I were to lose my job, I'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I would. I can't think of anything I'd have to lose.
Right. Yeah. But hey, a little piece of comfort here when that hyperinflation kicks in and they start printing those $500,000 bills, you'll be able to pay off your house in no time.
Yeah. Yep.
So
take a wheelbarrow to the bank.
So it's like, here, wipe your ass with this. I'm going to go buy a loaf of bread now. It's no longer your problem. I have a resource. But yeah, it's one of those things, man. I think about that. I think about it a lot, you know, even though I'm like, I don't want to do, and I could probably get away with not complying in any way. I could probably work it out and be okay. You know, it would probably be uncomfortable. It might suck for a little while, but I could probably do it.
Yeah.
And be all right.
But it wouldn't radically transform your day-to-day existence.
Right. I wouldn't be able to drink beer every day, but that's about it. You know, like whatever. Right? Probably don't need it every day anyway.
So maybe a little radical transformation.
Yeah. I'd be ultra, like hyper fucking productive because I'm not wasting time drinking beer.
Yeah. For me, it would destroy every single aspect of my day-to-day existence.
Yeah.
Like it would fundamentally transform every single aspect, from the car that I drive, the house that I live in, the girl that I love, the family that I see. Like all of that would be fundamentally transformed in one way or the other.
Right.
And probably not for the better.
So if you're given the ultimatum to do the testing once a week, you'd probably go ahead and do the testing then, you know, just to keep your job.
So I would do it with a caveat, with a subversive caveat, because those pieces of paper that they give you, I mean, I have a scanner, like,
yeah,
know what I mean?
Yeah.
You picking up what I'm putting down?
I got you. Yeah.
And I mean, the prevalence of like these fake vaccine passports and all that, like, I mean, now they're finally starting to get into putting them in a database and, you know, coming out with apps. I know Massachusetts has a vaccine app that you can upload your information in and they'll check it and all that. So that was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
But, now, like I said, I'm just in a holding pattern and, you know, there's just continuing on with life as normal. I've always been kind of, taking into account, you know, as much as I can support, taking into account, you know, a collapse or whatever. But, you know, there's undoubtedly if they get everything that they want, my life would be fundamentally transformed.
Yeah. I mean, you can, you know, for the last, I'd say 14, 15 years, I spent over a decade trying to get out of the city of Houston, spending every dime I had, you know, on child support and surviving in that city. and finally was able to get out of the city and get out here to the country where I wanted to be. And now I'm at a position, I'm 42 years old, and I'm just now starting to save money, right? It's not like I have like a nest egg, you know. I have enough going on in my life to where I'll be okay. But okay would be like the way I was living 15 years ago, where it would be a struggle, but I would still make it. And I know I would make it.
A significant setback. And that's what it would be for me as well. I after the initial calamity and collapse of everything that I hold dear, you know, I have kind of buttressed myself with little nest eggs here and there,
right,
to eventually, you know, arrive at solid but uncomfortable footing.
Yeah. And that's kind of the same situation I'm in. And like it would suck, but I'd be able to make it. But I worry about the people that wouldn't be able to make it. You know, there are people that are in the situation I was in, you know, like 20 years ago, where they're, excuse me, 22, 23 years old. They already have a couple of kids, right? And their young little cute wife is now an ex-wife, and she's somebody else's young little cute wife. And they're paying child support and getting dicked, you know, by the state, you know, here, there, and everywhere. And so, you know, you think about that. I mean, I look at some of the decisions I see young people making nowadays, and I'm like, man, I made those same mistakes, but I don't know if you have the same kind of rope I had.
Cushion.
You know? Yeah. Like I had a lot of rope to hang myself with. You know, I was able to make a lot of mistakes in my life and get away with it. I don't know if you have that now. I don't know if that cushion is there, like you said.
No. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I've been divorced. I've been, you know, made some pretty terrible decisions personally and professionally. But I got all that done. You know, by the time I hit my late 20s, I was smartened up and relatively stable. And you know, I'm glad I made them. But holy shit, like if I had made them now, like you said, I would be completely fucked.
Right. And I worry about that. I look at it and I'm just like, man, you don't have that leeway to make some fucking stupid ass decision nowadays. And maybe, I mean, part of me thinks it's, see, because I was talking to James Gentleman about this the other day, and I was like, look, man, like I went from thinking that these people were incompetent bozos to believing that they're evil. Right. And when you make that mind, when you shift, like your mind shifts in that way, you're not going back to incompetence. They know they killed those 10 kids, right? They know that. They know those kids are dead, and they don't fucking care. They don't have a care in the world. That's not incompetence.
Yep.
You know?
No. Nope. It's and yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because I made that shift, you know, within the last 2 years too. I was a good libertarian. That's, you know, the government can't possibly calculate value correctly. And, you know, if you look at a drone strike that kills 7 kids, well, that's just a warfare state and war is bad. And, you know, but war is bad because it enriches, you know, corporates, a wealth transfer. That's why it's bad. And, you know, now it's like, all right, they're literal demons that sacrifice those kids to Moloch.
Right.
That was a sacrifice to Moloch, probably.
Yeah. I mean, and I said that whenever the whole like Texas abortion thing was going on, I was like, Texas tries to limit child sacrifice and everybody loses their fucking minds. You know, they didn't make it illegal to sacrifice your child. They just said you had to do it before.
Just have to wait a little.
Yeah, you have to do it before this day. It's like, you can sacrifice your child as long as it's not in the womb longer than 6 weeks. You can still sacrifice the little shit, though. You know, But I think they should go the opposite way.
And
See,
that's
I
the
think,
Libertarian Party platform.
well, I think the red state should go the opposite way. I think they should say abortion is legal and state funded up and decided by the state up until that child has developed his frontal cortex. So now we have legal abortions up to the age of 25. You want to talk about late stage abortion? Let's talk about late stage abortion, because I've met some guys in their 20s that I think, well, man, maybe I'm rethinking my logic on abortion here, you know?
I'm suddenly getting pulled to being pro-choice now.
Yeah, but I think the choice should extend.
The choice to euthanize you. Yeah. Pro-choice euthanasia.
But yeah, man. So it's fucking crazy nowadays. Though I go through all these things in my head. I just sometimes I can't even like complete a thought because it's just so much. And that's another thing they did. I can't figure out. It's a. I don't know how to say it, but it's they're over indulging you with news, with information. It's just so much all the time. You can't keep up. Your brain kind of fries.
The 24-minute news cycle.
Yeah, exactly. It's just constant over and over, and you're being bombarded with information constantly, you know. And then you're trying
One of the good things about that, though, there's a silver lining to that, especially for us, is that, you know, for every post that we see, that's, you know, 9 times out of 10 is propaganda, but we can look at the replies to that and find our tribe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and you know, we're not the only ones doing that now. Yeah,
that's true.
And that's that acceleration that I enjoy, is that
I know you do.
every propaganda puff piece that comes out is an opportunity to find your tribe, to signal to your tribesmen, and to bolster that connection you have with your tribe, even if it's just online.
Yeah.
You know, your interactions online directly influence your interactions in real life. You become a smarter person, a more well-versed person, a more, maybe even more hateful and vitriolic person, but you're going to need that hate and vitriol for real life at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that I'll go weeks without reading news though. I've gotten to the point where it's just like, whatever.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to look at it. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I do take mental. I don't put it out that I'm taking a mental break, but I take my own little mental breaks. And then when Timeline Earth, it's time to record an episode of Timeline Earth, and they're like, "What do you want to talk about?" I'm like, "Man, I got nothing." I haven't been online in like 6 days. I have nothing.
Just give me a story. I'll play off of y'all. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. I'll drop a couple N-bombs. I'll say something anti-Semitic. Everybody will laugh. Bird will edit me out. And then we'll have a great episode.
All right. Well, let's talk about it.
That's the winning formula.
Let's talk about accelerationism, because this is something that you've been on this path for quite a while, and I kind of consider you the first quote unquote post-libertarian that I ever heard. You know, whereas you're talking, you've been talking beyond principle and philosophy into praxis, and how to utilize strategy, and you know, how to strategize for a long time. Longer than anybody I can think of. And so this entire...
It's a shame, because I'm probably the least qualified person to make that very general realization, because I'm, you know, I don't read a whole lot. I'm not really plugged into the intellectual side of libertarianism or ideologies in general. But I just got the gist. I got a lot of gists of what a lot of former radicals and current radicals are saying, and just tried to synthesize that into something meaningful and something palatable for our sub 80 IQ Timeline Earth audience.
but
if you want somebody that,
go ahead.
if you want somebody that really knows their shit, that can get down and dirty into the specifics, that's Popular Liberty all day.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'm talking to him on Tuesday. So
he's like what I could be if I just sat and read all day and like committed things to memory and actually just had my job was to think about strategy and think about acceleration. I would be him, but he just has that brain where he can operate 40 times faster at absorbing information and making connections than I do. So go with him. I may have tried to synthesize Marxism and Hoppian libertarianism, a year and a half ago, and that was cool and funny, but he's the real deal. Well,
I every time I engage with him online, I ask him if I can borrow a couple of IQ points. He still hasn't sent them my way, but yeah, I could probably be like Popular Liberty if I wouldn't have started drinking and smoking dope and doing acid when I was 13 years old.
Yeah. Priorities.
Focus on education. I am educating myself. I'm studying for my drug test. But you've been into accelerationism for quite a while, and so do you think it's a winning strategy? Because one of the things I've been into for a long time, since even before Michael Malice, believe it or not, was I've been into secession, and I got into the idea of Texas secession in about 2008, 2009, and so. Though I still advocate secession, I've written articles for the Institute on secession, and I do advocate for secession. I do take a step back and say, could this go horribly wrong? And I do recognize that it could go horribly wrong, right? And so
it could absolutely. Your name could be on a list of people that want secession.
yeah, just. Talking about it could go horribly wrong. So when you're talking accelerationism, do you see the downsides of accelerationism? Is it short term?
Absolutely.
Is it kind of like the way that the Misesians talk about the boom bust cycle, and just let it happen and correct itself and quit intervening in the situation, and then it'll be smooth sailing from there? Or do you think that is it short-term pain for a long-term gain is basically what I'm asking.
It is at the ground level, it's very high time preference at the ground level. Any opportunity you can take politically or otherwise to get things moving along, to push people that are already leaning left more towards the left, already leaning right more towards the right, to encourage that already organic kind of split, that what do you call it? What's the word I'm trying to think of? Polarization. Mm-hmm. To just if all of us, like all 500 of us libertarians, just added a drop in the bucket every single day.
First, we have to stop arguing.
Do your part to push. Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's probably not going to happen. But if you could find some time after arguing it to just push people, push that normie that replied to you with like, well, you just like, I think the vaccine is good, and something innocuous like that. If you can just let them know that whatever ideal situation they think that they can arrive at will always have people like you there to sabotage, subvert it. when you can get them to no longer buy into the like bourgeois moderate neoliberalism that is the hegemony that we have now. It still is, believe it or not. I mean, this is this is what moderate means now. What you see on CNN, that's moderate.
Right. Yeah. Well, moderate is 20-year wars, 27 trillion in debt. Like a quarter of the population locked up in prison.
That's the compromise position. That's the compromise.
Yeah.
But if you can get and Andrew made this like perfectly understandable. If you can get the people that call the shots to call shots at a higher frequency and at more intensity, more ideological intensity than they normally would, the normies are going to get pissed off. And when the normies get pissed off, that's when you see radical change.
Mm. It just seems to me like all
that change has to be unmanageable.
It seems to me like all the normies are at each other's throat all the time.
Which is good.
They're worse than libertarians. Well, I'd rather them be
at... No, it's...
I was just going to say I'd rather than be at the politicians' throats, Yeah.
Yep. But, we'll take what we can get.
Yeah. So when you when you're polarizing and you're good at this, like you're really good at this. I've seen you on Twitter doing this and I just laugh. I'm just like, damn, dude. Because I know you're saying things you don't even mean. Like you don't even believe half the stuff you're saying. And so I'm watching it and I'm just like, this is fucking hilarious. Like, I can't believe he just said that. I would never think to say some of the things you say. Like, it's just like, what the fuck? Where did that come from? And so when you're doing this and the way you envision it, this polarization, is that leading to secession or do you think that would lead to violent insurrection? How do you think that plays out?
Either way is fine with me. I don't think we have the luxury of choice. Obviously I have my preferences that probably align with yours, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that we don't if we do have any influence whatsoever in the course of history, which we probably don't. We definitely don't have the luxury of being able to pick and choose the nature of that course.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean we can only control so much in our lives, and there's. I mean, I think you and I have kind of at least witnessed similar kind of trajectories in our life to where we understand that there's so much that we can't do, that we can't control. And I think that's why I spend so much of my podcast talking about what people can do in their lives. Because I understand that, okay, like I could talk philosophy with you all day long, but it's not going to do you any good because it's not giving you any direction on what you can actually do. What action you actually take, And
it's not to say that that's useless. It may be helpful for somebody that's just now starting to realize, maybe something's wrong here and can't quite articulate it. The episodes like that are really good. Watching Ace argue back and forth with, hundreds of people for days on end, that might help. That might help. Like, for somebody that's just an onlooker, trying to figure out how to articulate what they feel about what's going on. Like, I'd rather they see Ace and Ace get that exposure than them go watch, OANN or Fox News or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No. And some people are really good at that. I just find that that's not my thing. And that's not my target audience either. You have to have a certain personality in order to not only tolerate it, but thrive on it. Right. I don't have the patience. Number one, I text Ace all the time. I'm like, dude, just go take a nap. Just fucking do something.
20 minutes.
Yeah, just step away from the computer, man.
Charge your batteries. I worry about your health.
But
go down to the basement.
And he's such a beautiful person in real life too, and he's so soft spoken and just easygoing, and you're just you're this monster I met on Twitter, But yeah, no, I kind of I feel like I target more of a blue collar audience just because my personality. That's what I've always done. It's just kind of where I'm at. We're up. Well, who I am, not where I'm at, but who I am.
How you got me?
Yeah, but yeah. So that's kind of. And so when I listen to, and sometimes I don't know if you find this, and we'll cut it here in a minute. I don't know if you find this, but I find that some of these guys that are still after 2020 talking theory and philosophy, it's just like, dude, what the hell are you doing?
Well, I have this theory that people that are in states like mine that are very up on COVID policy and very draconian, we are radicalizing past, say, people in Texas, people in people in Florida. That's where we're kind of in our own little civil war right now with each other as far as correct theory and dogma, libertarian dogma, really.
Yeah.
Because you have, I don't know, however many thousand libertarians in the state of Massachusetts and California and all that are going out in their day-to-day life and having it affect them and not being sure of like what's going to happen in the next 2 months. That does a really good job of radicalizing people.
Right.
And somebody that's in Texas that hears about it and it sympathizes, I don't think that they have the same potential.
Don't have the same sense of urgency.
So much of the focus of my podcast is to point out abuses of power and how bad things have gotten and the direction in which we're heading as a society. And it can be a real black pill. I've partnered up with Richard Grove to offer my listeners an opportunity to sign up to his Autonomy Course. The Autonomy Course is designed for people looking for solutions, people that want to shape their own future, people that are not willing to be at the behest of large corporations or the United States government or the banking system. The Autonomy Course is designed for those of you who wish to have complete control of the reins of your life, who are looking to be successful, to thrive and not just survive, to provide for your family by utilizing your existing skills and learning how to market and sell those skills in order to be your own boss, or learn new skills in order to leverage that into a new career opportunity. So if there's a job out there you've been trying to get or you've been wishing you could get, but you just don't have the skills for it, the Autonomy Course is the place for you to start, to learn how to land that position, to learn how to market yourself better, to gain confidence, and to be surrounded by a community of like-minded people that will encourage you and help you along the way. So use my affiliate links and go check out the Autonomy Course. It could be right for you.
Nope. And that's where you kind of veer off the train track of libertarian principle.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that, to be honest. I at the very least would encourage people to explore other ideas, explore praxis in general, because whatever we did leading up to this didn't work.
Yeah, it hadn't worked yet.
Gary Johnson and Joe Jorgensen didn't work.
Yeah.
And they know that. Like everybody that kind of disagrees with post-libertarian, they know that things need to change, but until they actually implement like a case study or come up with some plan that they can implement and that actually works, and maybe they will within the next year or two, and I'll be so happy to like put my foot in my mouth. But in the meantime, they just don't have that appeal or that credibility.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I asked James Gentleman the other day, I said, well, what do you do when the capitalists own the priests that are supposed to be representing the peasants and they own the warriors that are supposed to be protecting the peasants? What are the peasants supposed to do then? because they have nowhere to turn.
Be good libertarians.
Yeah.
abide by the
non-aggression principle.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It sucks that where we're at. But if anything, the people that disagree with post-libertarians should be even more angry at all those external factors and institutions that caused. Like, we didn't get here because we're bad people, because we're power hungry. We got here because we're going to be fucking homeless.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, it's a sense of urgency. It's a desperation. It's the reason I was attracted to agorism, because it put me in control of my own destiny. Right. I'm not dependent on the state or other people. I'm doing things on my own to ensure that I have some sort of insurance, backing me up. And
yep. Yeah.
Some of us
and
saw
that's a huge regret of mine.
Yeah.
That I didn't get more into that, when the getting was good. But, it is what it is.
Right. Yeah. Some of us saw it coming a mile away. And like I said, I've been paranoid for the last 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
But, as they say, it's just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Well, you've been completely vindicated.
Well, all right, man. Well, it's been.
If it makes you feel better, I'm telling you, you've been vindicated.
It's been over an hour. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you got your there, or your girlfriend, and your cat.
Oh, don't say it. Yeah. Ooh, shh. Don't use the word yet.
Oh, okay. Your feline
yes.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
yep.
All right.
Every podcast she has to come and bother me.
I'm gonna beep that part too, so everybody's gonna be wondering what I said.
Everyone's gonna think you dropped.
I would.
Wow,
beep
Tommy's really getting in the spirit of having Aaron on.
I might have to call Bird and ask him how to beep shit, because I don't know how to do that. I've dropped on my fucking podcast before though, so I ain't mad. So. All
right, man. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Plug away real quick, brother.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Whether or not my handle today will be my handle tomorrow, I don't know. But you can find me on Twitter. You can find me at Timeline Earth podcast. And I will be putting out content for my solo show, Boys Town with Aaron. I actually have an interview coming out with Andrew from Popular Liberty, where he goes through the entirety. It's 2 hours long, all about archetropism, being a Praxian, and the anti-tax. And I've been saying I'm going to put this out for so long. I am going to put it out. I'm going to start editing it as soon as we sign off here.
That feeling when Andrew was the 27th person to drop the N-bomb in your DMs. All right, man. You have a good night, dude.
Have a good one, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again.
If you're gonna play this game of pick and choose, well, it's a game that was made for you to lose. It doesn't really matter how many times, it's the same old worn-out stories, same old lines. They're all pointing dirty fingers in hypocrisy, bragging on their feats of mediocrity again. Never really making any kind of change, but they keep on getting re-elected, and I find that strange. That's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedoms. Yeah, I said fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedoms. What's it gonna take for you to see that we're living in a rigged democracy? say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedom. Yeah, fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedom. Yeah, I said fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedom. Fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking